During pregnancy, I gained a total of about 38 pounds and obviously lost a good amount of that when actually having Sage, my daughter. But then over the course of a few months, I ended up losing a total of 20 pounds with the vast majority of it coming from body fat during my body recomposition journey. I was really meticulous with the strategies I used because as a nutritionist who has worked with men and women all around the world, I know the cues. I knew what to do, I just had to execute. And honestly, I'm super proud about how I went about it because I was able to do it the right way. I didn't lose weight in a way that was unsustainable or would cause me to yo-yo diet and regain the weight back. I was able to nourish my body throughout the process. I wasn't hungry, I didn't count calories. It was all pretty smooth and seamless. And the end result is now me feeling the strongest and healthiest I've ever felt even before pregnancy. But with all of that in mind, there were a couple things that I wish I would have done different that would have made my experience even easier. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Element. More on them in a bit. Okay, so there were two main things I wish I would have done different. And the first one was actually during pregnancy that would have set me up for success after pregnancy, and it was to continue strength training throughout my pregnancy. Now, this was my first pregnancy, so I wasn't exactly sure how to go about exercise with pregnancy. I just assumed I had to go about it a lot more gentle from the start. And so I'd switched from my more traditional strength training to a more Pilates style workout. It was a program specifically developed for pregnancy, and it did have that more Pilates emphasis. So obviously a lot lower weight and generally just lower intensity. It did focus on pelvic floor health, which was great, but honestly, I really wish that I stuck to strength training. And I mean like the traditional heavier weight strength training. This might sound counterintuitive, but I do feel like I was a little too gentle on myself during my pregnancy. Maybe gentle is the wrong word. I was a little too easy on myself because I had scaled back with my exercise. My body was not being challenged in the same way. And so I had lost significant amount of strength and muscle, which was fine during the first part of pregnancy, but then toward the end, it actually caused some pretty serious issues, especially when I threw out my back about 36 weeks pregnant, and that was miserable. And because I threw out my back, it caused me to not really be able to move a lot in the way that I would like to in those last few weeks of pregnancy. And because of that whole about 8 months of really scaling back on my workouts and then also not being able to work out at all really for that first 6 weeks postpartum, I had lost so much muscle that I was essentially starting from scratch. And from a weight loss perspective and a body recomposition perspective, muscle is so important for our metabolism and our metabolic health. So in order for me to start making progress with the fat loss portion, which is what I wanted to focus on body recomposition. I did not want to lose more muscle. I wanted to make sure that I was only or really focusing on just losing body fat. And in order to do that, I had to rebuild up my muscle, which does take time. I literally had to start from scratch. I started with absolutely zero weight and then used like bands and like 2 or 5 pound dumbbells. And now, at least at the time of filming this, 10 months later, I'm finally getting back to a point where I do feel really strong again, and it feels so good. But because of that, also the body recomposition portion, once I did regain that muscle, was so much easier because muscle mass does help to protect the metabolism, helps to raise the metabolism, and makes it so that the body will primarily burn fat as fuel during the weight loss process instead of the muscle mass, especially when you combine that with the proper way of eating with protein, fat, and fiber, which I did throughout my whole postpartum journey. I have a whole video on that if you want to check out the actual nutrition details of what I did. I'll link it up here. But from what I found out now, and I wish I knew before, is that I really actually can stick to more traditional strength training during pregnancy. Of course, while keeping pregnancy in mind and making sure I'm adjusting it according to my body's needs. And what I believe would have been different is that I probably wouldn't have thrown out my back because I would have maintained strength throughout my pregnancy, which that would have just been very nice. But also I would have been starting off my postpartum weight loss journey with more muscle, which would have just made things a lot easier. Now, I'd love to have more kids, so in the future, I will focus on more traditional strength training that is tailored specifically for pregnancy. But for those of you who maybe are not pregnant or just looking for weight loss in general, one huge tip that you can pull from this is just to incorporate some type of strength training. It really does make a big difference, especially when you combine it with the nutrition practices we talk about all the time on this channel of protein, fat, and fiber, and actually eating for the body's needs and having meals and not snacks. It's an important piece of the puzzle that really does make all of the difference. In fact, this is something I discuss a lot in this year's limited release 6-week summer meal plan. It's all focused on body recomposition. So it goes goes over the nutrition tips and strategies and meals and meal plans and recipes, as well as the additional important tools like sleep and exercise, as well as how to properly measure your progress. It's a 6-week limited release meal plan. Once you own it, you have it for life, but once it's gone, it's gone. So I'll have it linked down description below if you want to learn more about it. Now, especially with starting a fitness journey, something that is really important is to make sure that electrolyte levels are balanced, which is why the whole time I was pregnant, as well as now, I've been using today's sponsor, Element. I've actually been using them for like years before this. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, lower carb eating, whole food eating, and athletes in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help replace the lost electrolytes, all without having any sugar and still tasting amazing. I have anywhere between 1 to 2 packets of Element per day, really depending on my exercise level that day or how much I was sweating. I have found on the days that when I forget to take Element, I feel so much lower in energy, especially around that 3 p.m. time. But when I am actually properly hydrated with Element, I feel amazing. And Element comes in delicious flavors. My personal favorite is their grapefruit salt, especially now that it's summer. It's so refreshing. Oh my gosh, so good. But their other flavors are incredible too. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any drink mix order. That's 8 single serve packets free with any Element drink mix order. It's a great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. It's only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link will also be in the description down below. Okay, the second really important thing I wish I would have done is just not looking at the scale. I mean, like a traditional scale at all. This is something I know to do. This is something that I preach all the time on my channel. And yet it is so easy to fall back into the trap of just looking at the scale for your progress, which not only does the scale not accurately tell you the progress you've made, but it actually can hurt your progress. The scale tells you your total weight. It does not tell you how much body fat or muscle mass you have. And that is important because when you're losing weight, what you really want is to not just lose weight, you want to lose body fat. Because remember, having muscle mass not only makes you feel strong and capable, it's really important for your bones, but it's also really important for metabolic health and for ensuring that you don't regain the weight back that you lost. When you're just looking at the scale, it doesn't tell you if that weight loss or weight gain is coming from muscle or from body fat. In fact, when you're following a body recomposition journey and using the right tools for lasting results, it's very likely, especially in the beginning, you're not going to see much progress on the scale because hopefully what's happening is you're either maintaining or slightly increasing muscle mass while losing body fat. So if you're taking like measurements with a tape measure or with something like the InBody, then you'll see you're making significant changes to your overall body. Your clothes are looser, you're feeling stronger, you're feeling more toned, and yet you might see literally zero change on the scale. That can really mess with your mind. It did mess with my mind for a little bit in the beginning portion of my postpartum weight loss journey, and that's even with me knowing and seeing the results of the tape measure and just knowing that this happens, but it can be discouraging to see a number not change on the scale. So that's why I found just not using a scale at all, but instead using something like a tape measure is so much better because it actually gives you accurate data on what's happening with your body. Or if you want some type of hard numbers of how your body fat and muscle mass is changing, this is where I do love the InBody. It is a scale-ish, but it actually gives you a breakdown of your muscle mass and your body fat, so you can see those changes outside of just the typical total weight, which thankfully, even though I did feel discouraged at one point because I didn't really see much of a weight loss after the first like month or 6 weeks or so on the scale, I did have this knowledge. So I just continued on the same path knowing that I was on the right track and I was seeing body recomposition results. And then 6 weeks after that point, I ended up losing about a total of 16 pounds of body fat while still maintaining muscle and then continuing on to lose a total of 20 pounds of body fat. And now I feel the strongest I've ever felt. Now, what I see happen with a lot of my clients is that they'll see that there's no change on the scale, so they'll try to eat less or run more, which all of these things just ultimately result in more muscle loss and can negatively impact the metabolism. And that's when you start to see the weight regain. So what I wish I would have done is just thrown out the scale. What I recommend to pretty much everybody is to do the same and instead to keep track with a tape measure or an InBody. If you can get your hands on a DEXA, do that every now and then, but tape measure and InBody are both amazing tools. Now, I do go over all this in my limited release 6-week summer meal plan. It's really focused on body recomposition, which is so important if you want lasting weight loss results. It has over 100 pages of science-backed tips. It has 6 weeks of meal planning, over 50 brand new recipes that are absolutely amazing and simple and delicious. I created this program while I was going through my postpartum body recomposition journey. So it is a limited release program. Make sure you grab it. I'll have it linked down in the description below, or you can find it at autumnlnutrition.shop. Now, if you want to see what I did during my body recomposition journey, you can check out out this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.